ones will stay safe. So it was my assignment by Pauline to talk about the pivot in action, and how I'm going to take this pivot in action is to talk about my business, and as a human being, as a person that founded this business, as an entrepreneur, what it takes to be in a business that was presenting in its tradition an event that brought 3,500 people together. And if I must make any humble projections for the future, I think the businesses that will join the right to do business again, the last businesses that will join that queue would be public gatherings. And that includes the entertainment businesses, the conferences, as well as sports gatherings. I think we are last in the queue to join the business world ultimately. And in South Africa, where we run our business, that projection is past September, and traditionally our big conference took place in September. So suddenly when COVID struck, we were out of business. We didn't have a business in our traditional sense. So my topic, the pivot in action, I'm going to share with you what we had to go through the last month, which I think many of you are going through, and how we pivot. And I'm going to make use of two graphs that I'm going to share on my screen. And in preparation for this talk, I thought, what would be the most useful thing to share? And these are the two graphs that in my life were recurring every time when I had to tackle new things, when I had to go through pain, when I had to go through change. And I thought it's appropriate to go back to these very profound graphs. I want to ask the administrators, Pauline, I think it's maybe Dixon, to put up my poll that I wanted to ask this audience. I'm going to ask you a question. It's a drop-down menu of 5 that you can answer so that we get some feedback here to see what this audience experienced in their pivot. So the question here, can you answer please? There's not a right and a wrong. We just want to ask this audience, please choose one state that best describes where you are at the moment. You might experience 2 states at the same time, but today, let's just focus on today. How do you feel in the pivot that you are undertaking? Are you in denial? Is everything going to be as it used to be very soon? Are you angry? Are you depressed? Are you in a firm negotiation position about negotiating a better future for yourself? Or are you already creating the better future? Which is the dominant space where this audience is at the moment? And I'm just going to give you a chance to answer that. And then we'll take you from there. So do we have an answer? Admin?
Yes, we have 47% of the people saying I am creating a better future 40% say, I'm negotiating a better future. This is fantastic because that's 80% of the participants being very optimistic. We do have 3% who say I'm in denial, and 3% I'm angry, and 8% who say I'm depressed. So 80% of the participants are on the negative side.
Well, that is also normal, and there's nothing wrong with going through all of that, because this line, this curve has been coined by a profound writer that already passed on, and her name was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And when I studied many years ago, her work had a big influence in my life. And then there it is, look at this beautiful graph. 47% is I'm creating a better future, 3% is in denial, 3% angry, 8% depressed, and 39% I'm negotiating, I'm in the negotiation phase. So you can close that. It's a kind of a benchmark for you to see where everybody is. And I think every emotion on this curve is a legitimate emotion. So this curve was designed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and her work emanated from the stages of acceptance of death. So it's quite profound from an emotional perspective. She says when you lose a loved one, the first experience that you have is you deny that has happened. So any one of you have lost somebody close to you, the first reaction, I have it wrong, the name is wrong, it cannot be. And then people go through various stages, and you don't have to go through every stage as intense, but some people go into anger, and they're really angry at God and the world and whatever the incidents and reason for the death was. So there's severe anger in that process. And then the next phase of this acceptance of death is depression, that you actually go into this space of inactivity, deep depression. And I think in the previous speaker, that was one of the questions. What do you as a creative do in that space, that deep depression? Because it makes you inactive. Look at that activity line in your graph. At the level of depression, according to her work, that's the space where you have the least activity. And then when you move through depression, negotiation starts. So you are starting to negotiate, okay, how do I get out of this? What has changed? What will it take? How do I pivot? How, you land at home, you can't do business, suddenly you learn to do Zoom, like all of us in this session. You might never before have used Zoom, and now you're using Zoom or webinar or whatever social media thing, and suddenly you must become comfortable with this. And look, all of us had to go through that learning curve if that was something that you haven't done. But this is part of negotiation. It has still not changed your entire life, but it makes you more active. And then she says, when you go through that and you go to co-create your future, where you actually take the steps, make the deals, organize the teams, make the business decisions to create the new future, then you are in the best space that you can be. And in death acceptance, after depression, negotiation is where you pray to God and you negotiate a peace of mind. And then you go into the next phase. I've lost this person. I can carry on with my life. It's a new reality for me. It's not maybe what I wanted, or I've learned I could cope with this and it made me stronger. So the co-creation is always the upward curve. And she said that when you go through any loss, this is what you go through. And then the industrial psychologists took this curve of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and they made it a theory of change. So in any change, there's loss that you have to grieve. So I want to say to those of you that are in denial, that are in anger, that are in depression, you have lost something. If you think about my business, I've lost a 3,500 gathering of human beings that talk about innovation in Africa. We facilitate over R1 billion of deals between tech startups and investors. Over the 3 days that happen at the Innovation Summit, we host 110 speakers. We showcase more than 80 brilliant tech startups that won our competitions to panels of judges over 3 days. We match and invest. All of that work is face-to-face. There's a digital component, but it's it's about that human energy, and we've lost that. So for us to say, oh no, we will keep on doing this event, or we will just postpone that event. That was the first reaction. We went through denial. The next reaction is, how long is this government going to put us in lockdown? By May, we should be up and going, because we need to go and sell the event as it was. And then suddenly you realize this will not happen this year. September, people will be scared. They will not go to a 3,500 event. And then I saw my entire team go through depression, and maybe not stating to me, I'm sad, but there's no activity. I can see how lame they feel. And then the new ideas came forward, and we went through all those group things, norming, storming, fighting, trying to get new roles, trying to sort this out, negotiation phase. And I hope we're now in the co-creation phase. We're probably between negotiation and co-creation. So I thought it's useful to think we're all in a pivot. There's not a single person in this room today that's not in a pivot, and that's the pivot in action. And you are somewhere on this graph. And maybe you can even go to co-create. It doesn't mean that you won't fall back into depression, or have a bout of anger, or, oh, well, this is only this year, next year everything will be the same as previously. A little bit of denial. All of these emotions will happen all the time. So I found this a very useful graph to just check in with ourselves. Where are we? And what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said, when you want to go into the co-create phase, to deny your depression and to deny your anger and to deny the pain of loss does not serve you, because you will cling to those those emotions, and it will impact your co-create and your new phase. So I want to challenge all of you that when I work with creatives, Puleng and Fred, I don't know whether you agree, it's like we must all always be positive. We must all always hype each other up and be happy, because otherwise, how can you create a new future? How can you be grabbing the future? How can you be creative? And my challenge to all of you is that you do not have to always be happy and positive. You actually, we have lost a way of life. In South Africa, I'm not even allowed to go and walk with my dog around the block. We can only go and buy food. It's a loss, and I need to feel something about that. It doesn't mean I must stay there, but I can move through all of these very legitimately and then make a very positive contribution to the future. So this is the one graph, and the lessons that I learned in our pivot as an event is that everybody is in this together. And that is the first wisdom that we all need to understand. If you get so lost in your own process, you cannot take anybody with you. You must understand, in the summit, we've got 10 people working there. I've got young people that are interns, and I've got experienced people, and they're all different. Some sit, I can see they're in depression. Some immediately wanted to jump into action and co-create and jump all these steps. But I could see how nervous energy around me. And then I had all these voices around the table that said, oh, well, no, we shouldn't stop selling packages for September. Everything will return to normal in September. So we had to make them aware that no, it won't be. And that it's okay to be there, but you'll have to move to anger, depression, negotiation to actually get this group through all the phases. So to get out of your own emotion, but also realize that your team members are going through exactly the same thing. And then what we did is we asked everybody, bring us your ideas. We need to survive this as a business. You need to fight for your job. And we all need to fight for this business. It's not going to be as it used to be. What pivot do you see you can carry in this business? So every single person from the intern to the chief operating officer had to come up with a plan that they could execute. Not plans and dreams that other people execute, but that you execute in your position. So it was a very responsible act, and everybody made a list. We took it to our board. The board approved the actions, or some of it, and we took it back to the team. And so far, everybody has a job. And what was very interesting is that I learned about skills in my team that I did not know. Project management skills, IT skills, things that they did not show me in the role that I used to be. But because I realized that the pivot is necessary, they revealed this for the team. And we reallocated responsibilities. We all learned new skills like Moodle and other packages. And the team, it took a month or two to get there, but the team is now definitely in the process of negotiating to co-creation. And we are, soon we will launch new packages, a new way of doing. And this takes me to the next graph that I want to share with you. And look at, I just want to show you the flow of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross graph. Up on top of the activity line, the loss occurs, and then you go below the activity line, and then you go over the activity line. Now look at the next graph, and this comes from another profound writer. And this is the innovation cycle as depicted by, what is this lady that wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves? Clarissa Pinkola Estes. So she says, as a creative, this is the natural cycle. You always, and she actually equated with the seasons, winter, then spring, then summer, then autumn, and that we live this cycle every year through the seasons. And she says that it all starts under the action line. And she says this is like winter. Now, if you look at this cycle and you look at the loss cycle, the change cycle that the management gurus picked up from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, then you see there's another cycle that starts under the line. So under the line is, there's nothing wrong with that. We need a winter, we need a place where we incubate, we stir, we dream. There's no action, it's just that. And I want to explain this, that when we heard about COVID-19 and you're in that space of denial, you're in that space of, in the other emotional line, depression maybe, negotiation, wherever you are in that cycle, then she says, it's also important that you go through this inactivity, incubation and quickening. And I remember 2 weeks before the lockdown was announced in South Africa, every morning I woke up with a question. It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't put the words to the question. So it came from my dreams. I wake up, this question wakes me up, that I don't know what the name of the question is. It was the weirdest feeling. And then the lockdown happened and the question disappeared, because in a way we all knew it's coming. But so our business already started working from home a week before the lockdown. So as humanity, we knew things are happening. You could see it's happening across the world. It came from China, it went through Europe, and suddenly it also came into your country, and the decisions affect you. So in that build-up, there was incubation and a quickening. And then I would say that what Clarissa says is that there's a point where that pivot happens, where you understand this is what I need to do to survive this. And she calls that moment, and I'm sure all of you creatives have different words for this, but that aha moment, it's the birthing moment. It's the moment where you can move from no activity to activity, that eureka moment. Now I know what to do. So if I can explain what happened in the Innovation Summit in this pivot in action, is everybody, if you looked at every other conference, they either cancelled the conference or they did the entire conference digitally. Now, what do you want to use this absolute provocation, because COVID-19 is a provocation for a pivot in your life? Do you want to use this provocation and just do exactly what you did but digitally? Or must you take this provocation to the next level? And there was something in my soul that said to me, I don't want to just digitalize the summit. It's just not what I wanted. It will take away from the experience. Can't you strengthen what you did? Deal making, connection, showcasing, capacitation through a new method, a new coming together, a new space, instead of just doing what you did but digitally. And that's what bothered me. And last Tuesday, so it was now a month in lockdown, we started a bit before lockdown to work from home. I had my birthing moment, and it released so much for me. And we came to the conclusion in our management meeting that at the time we are going to digitalize a huge component, but we are going to fulfill a dream we always had, and that is you get all of these people together over 3 days, but they do not land in an ecosystem. So what we want to do this year is we want to do this conference, but that the conference opens a room where you stay for a year. So you build an ecosystem that you become part of, because that's what the conference is. It's an ecosystem. You go there for 3 days, you leave, you were part of that ecosystem, but then you leave the ecosystem. So what we want to do digitally, so that when we do a real conference or a face-to-face conference in a year or 2 from now, then you enter that physical space, the deal making takes place, the celebration of human creativity, the inspiration, but when you leave, you are part of a digital ecosystem with deal rooms, with showcasing, with all the things. And for me, suddenly, COVID-19 took us to the better, to a higher level. So that's birth. Then after birth, you rise energy, and I can see my team who is part of that birthing moment. Some are still in depression, so we tell them, come people, there's hope. And the birthing has happened for me, and I'm the leader of this team. So suddenly I've got energy. Suddenly I want to work 12, 16 hours again. Suddenly I've got a purpose. I'm going to go to a place of more satisfaction. And that's the rising energy of this curve. And then, like anything else, we will probably build it. We're not in the zenith yet. We must still build it. We're getting quotations. I must find out what we can afford. We can go to virtual reality. We can go to augmented reality. There's so many things, but we can't afford everything. So within our budget, within the space that we can occupy, we will get to a zenith. And somewhere in the future, this solution will probably decline, and there will be better solutions to do what we do. And those are the seasons of innovation. And when that period is over, we go into death, you go into incubation, and you live the cycle through, And that is the reflection of your life every day you live it. Every year you go through these seasons, and that's the work that Clarissa Pinkola Estes brought to us to say, this is the natural order of the world. COVID-19 was a provocation. We going through these phases in our creative cycle. It's up to us to make use of it. And it's up to us to go to the next level with this. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. So I'm looking forward. I hope that I can say in a year's time, COVID-19 took the SA Innovation Summit to the next level. I hope in my own growth, I learned many new skills. I can already say that so. And I hope the same for you. I hope that this cycle is that provocation for more creativity, for more connection, for better products, for better teams, for the inspiration that this disease brought into the world. And that is up to us. So I see quite a few questions and answers. How do I open this? There we go.
The questions and answers in the Q&A section that's not right next to the chat button at the bottom of your screen. So there's a bunch of questions there. Audrey, you can have a look and start answering them if you want.
Thank you, Fred. I see the first one is from, I hope I pronounce your name right, Kioma Paul Dyke. How would you advise we settle back into our business and creativity after the lockdown is over? And the second question from him is, how do we overcome pressure and the overwhelmed emotions to get back on track? So, as I said in the cycle, it is definitely a process. Let's start with your second question. How do we overcome pressure? Yes, that is the stress we're all in. I mean, I had to pay 10 people's salary and I lost basically 2 months of productivity where we should have been selling and making money in May. There's no money coming in May. We couldn't sell anything in April. So we were changing products, which usually you don't use a team for 10 people to do. So there's pressure. I feel it. That one went away now. What happened there? Did you take your questions away? Fred,
Audrey, I took it away. As you answer them, I'm taking them away. So the next one that pops up is the next one you can attend to.
But I can't remember his first question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But that's fine. That's fine. Let's go on. Nella Zaharia. Hi, Audrey. Thanks for the session. Any tips on how a single person, somebody living alone, may pivot without having people in their household to count on? So just that loneliness. Noella, I don't know your circumstance. Are you part of a team? Are you working from home in a bigger business? You know, I think I've got one person in my team of 10 that also lives alone. And every time we've got a meeting, I ask her, Fancy, how are you doing? Because I can just imagine how it feels to be alone in my own household. I've got my husband and 2 grown children with their boyfriends. So we're 6 in my house, and it works like a charm. Everybody had to get jobs, they had to iron, washing, do floors, do the garden. It made us all, learn from each other. So on your own, you'll have to get your routine going, so it's new to any circumstance. So it's about getting your routine, sticking to a routine, doing what's good for you. Do you make space for meditation, maybe a spiritual space, exercise? My daughter is running 10 kilometers around our house. It drives me nuts, but she has to. She's very, very active, so she runs around our house to get there. You'll have to get some routines, that's what I would say. And then your pivot is your work, the work to go through all those emotions. It's part of your work. And then to co-create the better future you want to go to. I hope that helped. You can put things in the chat, you know, and share your feelings. You're all welcome to just make comments in the chat, because we're all going through this, you know, whether you're single or whether you are in a bigger setup. I think the people I feel the most for are the mommies that are used to work without the babies around their legs. I can just imagine how you negotiate with a 4-year-old that you have to focus on your pivot now, and the 4-year-old is around you the whole time. So I think we all have different challenges, and being alone is I guess the routine and the rhythm that you need to create, and what everything that goes with that. Then Galaxy A7, I guess that's not your name, but maybe that is your avatar. As change practitioner in my organization, I'm challenged by using Elizabeth Kubler-Ross change curve in rapidly changing environment as a result of COVID-19 impacts. How can I address the impacts? As change practitioner, I'm using this. Fred, help me interpret that question.
So as change practitioner in my organization, I'm challenged by using Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I think you mentioned her, change curve in rapidly changing environment as a result of COVID-19 impacts. How can I address the impacts?
Oh, do you mean the impact of the team, you supporting the change, and that some people are in anger, and some people are in depression, and some people are in denial? Then I think let's use normal psychology here. I think by identifying and empowering people with that emotional language makes it visible. So now you can say, and one of my team members was in deep depression, and I said to her, do you realize that the fact that you cannot get out of bed in the morning is a sign of depression? Now, as soon as you name it, you can address it. It's in that phase where you don't know, I'm actually very angry at the moment. I'm angry at everybody, government, and maybe God, and maybe my team, and maybe my business. But as you express it, you can actually deal with it. And I'm not a psychologist, but I would say that that is a way to, it works for me. Giving people the language, making it visible, and then talking about it. So in our team meetings, we give everybody a minute to say, where do you stand at the moment? Did it change from last week? Realize we're going through this. Monitor yourself, giving them the tools to monitor themselves. I still have a team member or two that as soon as they hear things they don't like, they become physically very ill. You know, there's deeper issues that I'm not even equipped to work with, and then maybe get them more help, you know, get more people involved. That's what I would say.
I love that, Audrey, and it's about the internal locus of control. There's some things we can control, and there's others we can't. Right now, it's about how we react to this from an internal space. So I love that. If you can look at the Q&As, you just miss Roy Thomas's, just the one that's at the top now. Do you see that?
Yes, let me do that. Kubler-Ross missed the reflection bit prior to negotiation, as negotiation takes you above the activity line. Do you agree? To negotiate, you have to be active. Reflection is on the line. Oh, yes, I like that. Yes, I did this curve yesterday in preparation for the session from my memory. This curve lives in my heart. So to get it academically right, I bow to your superior knowledge here. And this is just a tool that you can use for your own expression. So I like what you say. I think reflection is that space before you become active in negotiation, because as soon as you go over activity, I agree with you, and you start saying, like in our case, we are getting all the quotes in. What will a digital twin for Table Mountain cost us, and I know already that cost R1 million to build the digital twin so that we can have this creative space where we go up the mountain and do a plenary session in the mountain. We cannot afford that. So that's a negotiation, and it takes a lot of activity to phone people, to get those quotes, to start comparing it. And we're not in a decision, we're just negotiating the future we want. And it takes a lot of activity, I agree with you. So let's move that negotiation up the activity line. Then, can a pivot experience be internal? Oriri Nwani, I do think a pivot experience, most of it happens internally. I just shared with you the moment my real pivot, I mean the COVID-19 forced the pivot on me. So physically I had to go and work from home, right? So the pivot is there, but the entire experience is inside. So how comfortable are you? How much work does it take to set yourself up from home? How much changed behavior does it take? How much emotional does it take? All of that happens internally. The only things that happen outside is when you deal with other people, when you deliver, and it's in a setup like this is maybe a little bit external, but everything else went on internal. Puleng, do you think that's a good answer, or do you want to put something in there? Is Puleng there?
I don't know, maybe she's gone for morning coffee.
Yeah. Fred,
yeah, I love what you're saying, Audrey. Can you check? Can you see Michael Lee's question? It's the top one on the list.
So why do I always go to the second one? I think it's because you lift it up. Okay.
Yeah, it's all my fault. I'm deleting them as you answer them.
Let me just deflect everything to Fred. I love you, Fred.
I love you too. So Michael, yeah.
Michael, hooray! This is a really cool idea because.
So Audrey, he posted this while you were talking about, you know, what you came up for as an alternative for the conference.
Oh, okay, nice. Because there's never sufficient follow through after any conference or festival. This is a much better idea, and you should do it anyway in the future, maybe for 6 months before the live event. Yes, that's exactly. You know, actually, Michael, for years we have been dreaming about how do we create stickiness in an event, because that's the problem with an event. It's a very cyclical thing. All your money in your business comes in over those 3 months of the event, even if you do super early bird tickets. So you always sit with this horrible cycle that you must navigate. Or you must create mini events, you know, if you want to stay in the same paradigm. But if you now move, so we always wanted to flatten our curve. Can you imagine all this creative language, flatten the curve? Everybody wants to flatten the curve. Now, for a life of mine, I always wanted to flatten the curve because we didn't want all our money to come in September. We wanted money to come in January, December, which were the worst months. So now if you've got an ecosystem, you can probably do a lot in that ecosystem, add value, do academy work, do other services for entrepreneurs like auditing services, like storage in the cloud, you know. So everything is possible now. COVID-19, probably in a year's time, I will say, thank you, COVID-19, for everything we learned.